This Snowflake step-by-step tutorial is a beginner's guide on how to build a Snowpipe continuous data ingestion service using the Azure portal. The architecture diagram shows that Snowflake streaming data can be accomplished in a variety of different ways. This particular video is focused on building a Snowpipe continuous data integration service using the Azure portal. I hope you're excited to know that at the end of the tutorial, we will have built a fully scalable serverless data pipeline between Azure Storage and our destination Snowflake table. To accomplish our goal, we'll need to have a Snowflake account and an Azure account. We can use free trial accounts for both of these. Because we'll have to toggle back and forth between Snowflake and Azure, you'll notice that each of these tutorial pages has a logo in the right corner to let you know whether you are in Azure or Snowflake. This tutorial is designed for the novice, and as such, we will ignore some of the best practices regarding naming conventions or Snowflake role assignments. Here's a summary of the file names that I will use throughout this tutorial. The first 6 entries are those that are assigned by Azure and Snowflake. The remaining names are ones that I created. So let's get started. The first step is you'll want to gain access to Azure. So go ahead and navigate to the portal.azure.com/home and sign in with your personal Microsoft account. Once you sign in, you'll be able to obtain your tenant ID, which is a unique identifier. So go ahead and click on that View button underneath the Manage Azure Active Directory. And once you do that, you'll see your tenant information, including the tenant ID. You can go ahead and click the blue icon, which will copy to the clipboard, and then you'll want to go ahead and paste your ID into Notepad, OneNote, or Word, something like that. You know, I used an Excel file, and that's how I kept mine organized. But whatever, works for you, go ahead and get started with that. You'll find it a lot easier if you keep track of it that way. Okay, so the next step is before you can really do much more in Azure, you'll need to go ahead and activate your free trial account. To activate your free trial account, it is going to require a phone number and a credit card authorization to get started, but nothing's going to be charged. And to activate your free trial account, what you'll want to do is click on that home clickable link in the top left-hand corner to return home. And then underneath the Start with an Azure free trial, there's a Start button that you'll want to click on. All right, once you've entered your information and activated your free trial account, what you'll see is the screen that's on your left-hand side, and you'll want to navigate back to home by clicking on the home clickable link. Once you do that, the screen on the right-hand side will appear. So now we're ready to really get started into Azure now that we've activated our account. And so what we'll want to do next is go ahead and create that resource group. And that resource group is where we're going to collect all of our resources. So to begin, we'll want to click on the plus sign above Create Resource. And then we'll want to use the search area to start typing in the words resource group, which we can then select. And once we select the resource group, we'll have the option to create a new one. So we just click on that create button. Once you click on the create button, this screen will come up. It will already be pre-populated with your subscription, which is a free trial, and the region that you selected. But what you will have to enter is your resource group. So enter whatever name you want to give your resource group. And then at the bottom left-hand side of the screen, there's a button, Review plus Create. Go ahead and click on that button. Once you do that, there'll be some validation checks. Once the validation is passed, don't forget to click the Create button at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen to go ahead and finish actually creating the resource group. All right, so now you have a resource group and you want to create a storage account within that resource group. So what you can do is click on your notification symbol up in the top right-hand corner of the screen. And it tells you that your resource group was created. There's a button there that you can click that will take you to your resource group. So once you're taken to your resource group, what you can do then is click on the Add button. So there's that plus symbol again to add. And what you're going to do is, again, use the search feature because you're going to want to add a storage account. Begin searching for storage account. Once that comes up, go ahead and select it. And then you'll see that you have the ability to create a new storage account, which you see on the right-hand side. So click that button, Create button. Once you click the Create button, then a screen will come up. Again, some things will be filled out for you, pre-populated with the subscription, the resource group. What you will have to enter is the storage account name. And the location, again, should be pre-populated. Make sure that your account kind is storage v2. That's very important. And then once you input that storage account name, what you're going to want to do is click on that Review plus Create button. And again, some validation checks will be done. Once the validation has passed, you'll want to click on the Create button. So once you've done that, you'll see that you've done your part and you've created a storage account, but it has to be deployed. So you'll see what you'll see is deployment is in progress and then deployment is complete. Once the deployment is complete, you'll have the option to go to resource, and you'll see that button that allows you to do that. Just click on that button so that you'll go to the resource. So again, you're going back to your resource, and this time what you're going to want to do is create another resource called a container. And there's a big box there that says containers, so click on that, and then the plus symbol next to container so that you can go ahead and begin the process of creating a new container. To create the new container, you'll have to give it a name, and you want to go ahead and leave the public access level as private. Go ahead, once you've input the container name, hit the Create button at the bottom of the screen, the bottom right-hand side of the screen. All right, so up next is creating a queue. In the search area, you can start the search for queue and select that queue icon. And then once you've selected the queue icon, right next to queue to the left-hand side is that plus. Click on the plus to begin the process of creating a new queue. To create a new queue, you'll have to give it a queue name. And once you do that, then you'll click the OK button. After having done that and your queue is created, what you'll want to do next is create an event subscription. Make sure to navigate back home, and there's a drop-down menu to the left here that you can use anytime to navigate back home. And then once you're back home, there's your recent resources, one of which is your storage account, and it has a clickable link. In order to get to the storage account, you can just click on that clickable link. Takes you to your storage account, and from there you can create a containers box because you're going to want to create a container in your storage account. So click on the containers box, and then once again search for your events. Once you have found the events listed in the search, you can just select that, click on the events icon, and then next to that, on the right-hand side, you'll see event subscription, and to the left of that is the plus symbol. Click on the plus symbol so that you can begin the process of creating an event subscription. For the event subscription, there's a couple of different steps here. For the first two steps, you'll want to enter the event subscription name and the system topic name. And again, some things are already pre-populated, such as your source resource and your topic type. Make sure that your event schema that comes up is the event grid schema. And so then after entering your name and your system topic, there's two more steps. So the next two steps that you're going to want to do is underneath the event types. You'll see initially it comes up and says to selected, but what you want to do is use the drop down arrow because you don't want both of those selected. You only want the blob created. So then that means that you'll want to uncheck the blob deleted. In addition to that, for the endpoint type, you want to use the drop down menu and select storage queues. All right, so you selected storage queues as your endpoint type, but now we have to say what the endpoint actually is. So click on that select an endpoint clickable link. Once you do that, you'll be able to click on the button that says select storage account. When you do that, underneath your storage account, you'll see that the storage account listed is the one that you created earlier. Just go ahead and click on that. Then next, you'll see that that's pre-populated, and below that, you're asked to select the storage queue. So the second step on this page is to select the storage queue that you created earlier. Once you do that, be sure to click on the Confirm Selection button at the bottom of the screen. Then at that point, you can click on the Create button on the bottom of the screen. After a few minutes, the notification shows that the deployment was successful. Okay, so we need to get some information before we head over to Snowflake. We have our tenant ID, but we need to get the queue URL. So we want to navigate back to home and then click on that storage clickable link. Use the search for finding the queues and then click on the queue icon. Once you do that, you'll see the queue that you created earlier. You'll see the queue name. You'll also see the queue URL to the right-hand side. Make sure to copy and save that URL. So now we're headed over to Snowflake. First thing we got to do is set up a Snowflake trial account. So go to the signup.snowflake.com and fill out the information that you need to set up your free trial account. Once you do that, Snowflake will send you a welcome email. The welcome email has all the account information, and it also has an actual clickable link to log into Snowflake. So you're ready to do that. Go ahead and log into Snowflake. Once you're in Snowflake, the first thing you're going to want to do is go ahead and change your role to account admin. That's because some of the things that we're going to do later require you to have the account admin role when you're doing it. So we're just going to do everything in the account admin role. So you can do that by using the drop-down menu and then selecting or switching your role to account admin. All right, so what we need to do next is we need to create the destination table. So we're going to start by first creating the database. And in order to do that, we're going to click on the database's icon. Then we're going to use that plus symbol to click on because we're going to create the database. Enter the name of the database and then click on the Finish button. So then you'll have your database created, and you're going to want to click on the database name, which is a clickable link. That's step number 5. And you'll want to do that because the next step is we're going to create a table in that database. So within that database, we are creating a table. We're going to leave the schema as public. It's already there. But we are going to create a table, and here I called it My Table. And we're going to go ahead and input some columns or fields. And to do that, you can click on the plus symbol to add the different columns inside your table. And if you prefer, instead of that, you can use the SQL in the worksheet and create your table that way instead. All right, so now once we've created our destination table, we're going to create the notification integration. So in order to do that, you'll want to click on that worksheets icon and use the code provided here to go ahead and create the notification integration. Make sure that you input the storage queue URI and the tenant ID that you copied from the work you did earlier in Azure. Okay, next what we need to do is, still in Snowflake, we're going to get that Azure consent URL. The way we're going to do that was we're going to use that describe command, DESC, and we're going to ask Snowflake to give us the information about our new integration. Once we use that describe command, one of the properties that's returned is the Azure consent URL. So go ahead and copy that Azure consent URL, and you're going to want to paste it into a new tab window because you're going to want to open up. It's going to give permissions are going to be requested here from Microsoft. So that URL is going to bring up this permissions requested that you see on the screen here, and you are going to have to check the box that says consent on behalf of your organization, and then click on the accept button. And you're only going to have to do this one time. All right, so now we've had success when we see this screen. We know that that's been accomplished, and we can navigate back to Azure. Back in Azure, now what we're going to do in this step is we're going to add a role assignment. In order to do that, we're going to search for Active Directory by clicking on that right arrow for more services. Then we can click on Active Directory. We can use the search function if we'd like, or we could just click on the Azure Active Directory. And then notice that on the left-hand side, there is a selection for us that we want to click on Enterprise Applications. Once we click on Enterprise Applications, you'll notice that the Snowflake PAC INT 1024 or whatever is generated for you, that's a clickable link. So you're going to want to go ahead and click on that. And once you click on that, then you'll be able to copy the name. So make sure you copy that name and save it in the document that you already started earlier to begin saving these kind of things. All right, so next up what we want to do is navigate back to home, click on the storage account, which is again our clickable storage account link. And then over on the left-hand side, we want to begin looking for IAM, which will bring us up the access control IAM. We'll want to select that or click on it. And then make sure that we select the role assignments. That's step number 2 there. So click on that. And once we've done that, we'll see here in step number 3, we want to add a role assignment. So once we click the plus symbol next to add, kind of a drop down comes down, and we want to click the first selection, which is add role assignment. All right, so notice that this time on the right hand side, we're going to enter the role as storage queue data contributor. So that there's a drop down there, we can select that. And then we'll want to begin. So notice also that the in order to select our enterprise application name for Snowflake PAC INT 1024, we have to begin typing something. It doesn't automatically appear. So begin typing the word Snowflake, and then you'll see that appear, and you can go ahead and select it. In your user access to, if it has the selection of user group or service principal, that's what you want to leave it. If it has something different, use the drop-down menu and make sure to change it to that. All right, so you've gone ahead and entered or selected the role assignment. You've selected the Snowflake PAC INT 124, which is your enterprise application. And so next what you want to do is click on the Save button. Once you click on the Save button, you'll see that the new storage queue contributor it appears on the screen. So you know that you've entered it correctly. So that's done. All right, so after that, we want to get the endpoint. In order to get the endpoint, we'll just navigate back home and click on our storage count, a clickable link again, and then we'll click on Properties underneath. All right, and then once we click on Properties, we'll see that a bunch of information is listed, a bunch of the properties information, and what we want right now is the blob service primary endpoint. So copy that blob service primary endpoint and save it. All right, next up is we're going to generate our shared access signature. So we'll be able to click on shared access signature, and once we do, it's important that you fill out the screen or fill out the page for the shared access signature as you see it here. So make sure, for example, that the allowed resource types are container and object, and the allowed permissions that you don't have delete or update, those kind of things. So take a minute and make sure that everything's updated there. And once everything agrees to what you see on the screen, go ahead and click on the button to generate the shared access signature and connection string. All right, so once you do that, that blob service shared access signature URL can be copied and saved. And so now what we want to do is take a deep breath and head back over to Snowflake. All right, so we're back in Snowflake again, and we have lots of more information that and lots of things we did in Azure and lots more information. So we're ready now to create our external stage. In order to do that, we want to click on the databases icon and select stages. Once we do that, that create option will be there with the plus sign on the left-hand side. That's step number 3. Go ahead and click on that. A screen will come up that allows us to select Microsoft Azure. So make sure you do that and then click on the next button, step number 5. All right, so once we do that, we'll see that the information comes up that gives us the ability to create our external stage. So we'll fill out the name, the URL, and the Azure SaaS token. We can do it there. Again, we can always do it in SQL in the worksheet as well. But if you input it on the, like we see on the screen here, go ahead and input the pieces of information and click the Finish button. And we're off to create the snow pipe. Okay, so creating the snow pipe, we want to go back to the worksheet and create the pipe with the SQL code as given here. And you can see that once we do that and we run it, we always have to click the Run button anytime that we run code. Then we'll see that the pipe was successfully created. In summary, here's the 4 steps that we did to create the pipeline. And again, when you're in a worksheet and you have your SQL, just make sure you hit the Run button in order to get the SQL to run. So step 21, we are now ready to create the CSV files that we're going to want to upload. So use whatever program, I use Notepad. I threw in some data that you see here, and then I saved it as a CSV file. I created 2 different CSV files as you see here. Once these CSV files are created, we'll want to make sure that we navigate back to the Azure home and then click on our storage account. Once we've clicked on our storage account, we can search underneath there for Storage Explorer and click the Select. Okay, so we're going to use that Storage Explorer to upload the CSV files. So we're going to select Blob Containers, and then underneath there, we see that our container appears, which is our Snowdata-blob. So we're going to want to click on that and then click on the upload as you see in step number 2 here. All right, so we can use the blue icon to the right and search our computer for the first file that we want to upload, select it, and then click on the upload button. Our upload to Azure is complete. At this point we can decide to go ahead and upload a second file, or we can go through the remaining steps, see how it works, and then come back and upload a second file after we go through the remaining step. Either way is okay. All right, so now what we want to do, now that we've uploaded in the blob storage in Azure, we would expect that the file or files, the data from that would appear in Snowflake in our destination table. So the first thing we could do is back in Snowflake, we can check the status of our pipe, and you can see there's a lot of really interesting information here. It's outside of the scope of this tutorial, but it's really cool, and you can do that if you want to delve further into that. What we do want to do though is go ahead and confirm that the data is in our Snowflake table, so we can just run a select star command, and you'll see that there's the data from both of the files that I loaded separately. And so again, the data just is there, and you can see that. So make sure you test that in your Snowflake worksheet. Again, use the Run button. And some other things you can do. There's many things that you could do at this point. You could look at the load history. Again, that's optional. And here's the command for it as well. But again, take some time if you want to go ahead and play around with some of the commands and some of the things that you can do with the Snowflake pipeline. All right, so Just to summarize, you've now successfully built a Snowflake Snowpipe continuous data ingestion service using the Azure portal and 25 easy steps. You've done that, and so you could take a look at the 25 steps, and it didn't even take us 25 minutes. And that's the end of this tutorial, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Please feel free to reach out to me on social media in YouTube here on this channel, or in LinkedIn or Twitter. Thank you so much.